we are live. All right, if you guys want to take a moment to share this with your friends and followers, I'll do the same.
All right.
Give it a moment for everybody to join us. Everybody who's joining in, welcome. We are on Facebook and we are on YouTube. So I'll give it a few for everybody to come in. Matter of fact, I can even play a little music. I think I can do that. While we wait for everybody to come in. When you guys come in, say hey. We want to greet you. We want this to be interactive as well. If you guys want to ask questions, feel free to do so. While we're having this conversation, I'll be responding. So we can ask questions to our guest today. But we'll start in about. I'll give it about another 2 minutes to get started, and then we'll get going with this conversation. We're talking the parental point of view today. We have two parents with us. There's so many children right now, whether they're grown, whether they're teeny. Everybody's going through some things right now with the kiddos. So we definitely think this is an important conversation to have, especially parents who are trying to cope while their child is living with a mental health condition or in crisis. So this is a really important conversation that we're looking forward to having. So just stay tuned. I'm going to give it another about 60 seconds and then we'll get started. But thanks for those who have dropped in already. I know this is going to be such a great combo. Oops, that wasn't smart. Whew. All right. Looks like we have a few in here. Hey, everybody who is joining us. I will go ahead and start by introducing myself, and then I'll have the other guests introduce themselves. I'm just hosting tonight, so I'm a little excited. I get to rest a little bit, just ask the questions. But I do have some lovely ladies with me today. Some super moms, Tamu and Nikki, are with us, and they're going to tell a little bit about themselves. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Simone Lachey. I am the founder of A Sound Mind Incorporated, which is a faith-based mental health organization. And we're so excited about all these discussions that we've been having throughout the years on these different topics that really aren't getting addressed enough. So tonight we're talking the parental point of view. And this is really a topic where we're going to be transparent and try to be as helpful as possible to other parents out there who might be struggling with, especially adolescent youth. And youth with different mental health conditions, youth that are in crisis, that might be having suicidal thoughts, who might have attempted suicide. We want to talk about all of it. So that's just kind of why we're here. Tamu, thanks for joining us. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself first and just describe a little bit about why this conversation most resonates with you.
Yes, thank you, Simone, for having me this evening. I am Tamu Lewis. I am the co-founder and board president of the Lee Thompson Young Foundation, which I created along with my mom in 2014 after losing my brother, actor Lee Thompson Young, to suicide in 2013. And he suffered in silence with bipolar disorder. So we created the organization to really promote mental health education. And then also, I am a mom who is raising a daughter. My oldest daughter is diagnosed with bipolar disorder. She is 19. And so I'm really passionate about helping other parents, particularly moms, to go through this journey and know that you're not alone. Um, I know that I experienced a lot of support and help from mental health professionals, but the gap that I felt was not seeing anyone who was actually going through it, right? So they could share their lived experiences and really help me know that I'm not alone versus a therapist who has learned how to help me. So that is something I'm very passionate about. And I know even though I had the support and I felt like I was moderately educated about the condition and different things, I still felt overwhelmed and felt like I was in a crisis myself while trying to support my daughter. So that's just a little bit about me.
Great, great. Thanks so much for already your vulnerability. I really appreciate you being here. It's great to have you. Nikki, welcome. You're on mute. Yeah.
Can
There you
you hear
go.
me now? All right, there we go. Hello, everyone. I am Nikki Powell Cotton, and I was just listening to her story, and I said, "Wow, it sounds so um, similar." I am the founder of We Fight Foundation, and that foundation is found for my daughter, actually, who later was diagnosed. She's diagnosed with bipolar as well, but I started because of her multiple attempts of suicide. So she had her first suicide attempt at the age of 13. And so being that mom, wanting to fight with her, we started the foundation, We Fight Foundation. Our motto, I fight, you fight, we fight together. And definitely I also connect with caregivers. And like you said, particularly moms, because of, like you said, just feeling alone, that journey. And this was like I said 10 years ago when we first I mean really got on a journey of trying to even get to the healing part, although she's 25, but it took a couple of years to even educate myself and get to that point that I can even fight for her, because when you don't know, you're not educated, you don't know how to fight, and feel like you said, that gap is lonely. It's lonely, especially when you're caring for a teenager who has their own hormones and things, and they have a mental illness. It's very and lonely. It's a lot trying to educate yourself on it. So now that I have the knowledge, that's what I try to do, is use the foundation and just even my voice and advocate for it. In any way, form, or fashion. And oftentimes, like even me and my daughter, we have had crisis calls where we actually was called because of an individual. It might have been having suicidal ideation to our sister parent and with sister individual. So that's been a blessing as well, to be able to even serve when she's healthy, when she's mentally stable. So we also have a Raleigh magazine, which was birthed from just feeling like things. The foundation was kind of in a box. I felt like things is, mental illness and challenges are all over. And so the magazine is global, it's digital, it's print, and it's actually available for all ages. We have a youth zone, particularly for our youth, to get louder and be able to speak and tell their story, and hear their voice. But it's so much in there for all ages. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm so glad to hear you guys both speak. You guys have so much in common, and
I
even with
know. I was like, wow.
even with my story, you guys know that I would, and this is why I wanted to have the conversation. So I was the child that was diagnosed with bipolar 10 years ago, after my crisis, and I thought this was a very important conversation to have, so that parents could maybe know, just that they're not alone, overall, just knowing that they're not alone. So I want to start from the beginning. Did you guys see signs before a crisis happened, or before there was a diagnosis? Did you guys see signs? What made you guys take action?
um, you want to go first, Timo?
Uh, let's see that one question alone, I could talk about that for a while. But I will say that I noticed something probably really early on, so way before a diagnosis, around the time that my daughter was 7. and just really some acting out and some frustration, and also like not being able to be soothed, right? So there would be, times when I would get a call from school, and like there were certain things that normally a teacher can do if they know the student,
Right.
and then the student can calm down and kind of move from that hot moment, right, to a more calm moment. And those things didn't work for my daughter. And my daughter, even at the age of 7, was very in tune with herself. And so, even though I had noticed some signs and I'd spoken to our pediatrician, we had a very good pediatrician, and she and I had already spoken, and I had already had an appointment scheduled for my daughter, but my daughter didn't know yet. But she came home that day from school and said, Mommy, I need help. It still gives me chills. She said, Mommy, I need help. And I said, don't you worry. I know we already have an appointment. We're gonna figure this out, right? So this is 7. So from there, we had that support. We happened to get, matched with a psychiatrist very early on that she felt comfortable with, and we were able to stay with that same psychiatrist who also provided talk therapy, which sometimes those aren't the same person.
Right.
But this one was the same person, and that worked out great. And she was able to stay with her from 7 to 17.
Wow.
So that was really important in the process. But I would say if I fast forward to the teenage years, it was more evident the sort of fluctuations in the mood. So those are things that you can observe in the whole. In our situation, the swings were quick, very fast. So it wasn't like, over the course of some days, you see the agitation more. No, it's like 0 to 100,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're like, okay, and you're looking at your child and you're like, that she doesn't even look like herself, right? So obviously there's something that's happening. This is an episode. And of course, going through working with the doctor, she was able to give me some support as well and kind of help me um, track and figure out some of the potential triggers and things like that to kind of help me manage. And one of the things that I did find helpful was to keep a journal in my phone. So, just like a running notepad, I would put the date and then what happened, the date and then what happened. And so then that way, whenever we had an appointment, because sometimes when you're going through this, you can't, sometimes you can't remember what day it is. And so if the doctor is like asking you for information so that they can help you, you can't even remember. Like it's very overwhelming. So I would have the notes, in my phone, and I could look and see. And then sometimes we could identify trends and things like that. So we could try to be a little more proactive. So I'll pause there.
Um, for my daughter, I started also seeing signs at 8. So but I didn't associate it with bipolar, like of course we didn't know what that was, or even depression. Um, but she did spend a lot of time. She was a loner. She did a lot of things. She has the social. I think she's kind of deal with that social anxiety type thing or whatever. So I knew it wasn't that good. It was hard for her to make friends. But her mood swings, her emotions were, like you said, would really just kind of scale up and down, up and down. But you will say stuff like, she's the only girl, she's spoiled, she was spoiled, so those things, like, you mistaking it with you dealing with children as just their temperament, this is her personality. Not until a teacher has asked me, actually, she would do stuff like sleep on the floor at school, or take naps just about the whole day, get any work done. And if maybe have some outbursts if kids are teasing her. Um, and I can remember her first day at kindergarten throwing chairs because the kids were teasing her. So when she was bothered, her reaction was like large, really big. So I'll get those calls but it's only when somebody was picking with her because she stayed to herself. So like I said, it was not. I still didn't associate it with just any type of mood disorder, anything like that. I'm still trying to figure that out. When you're so young, like 8, you're going through the emotions with them. I can remember so many probably, situations or incidents that was probably a little bit much compared to, my other children, but still I was just like, we just started being like, that's Nunu, that's her nickname, that's her, but not really looking at it as a problem. So not until, and like I said, I always call them silent cries that we miss, and that's why it's important to spend that time with our children and really, the closer you are with them, spending time with them, you'll really notice more things more quickly. So unfortunately with her, she was being bullied in middle school, and I didn't know that she was being bullied, and because she already was dealing with her own mental challenges, that just pushed her over the edge. So for her, it was my memory of just even starting her mental wellness journey, it was just the fact that, she attempted to take her life. So she came home. It was a typical day. How you doing? How was school? Was it okay? And it was all short answers because, you just allow your your preteens or your teenagers to kind of give you those short answers. Sometimes you don't bug them. You just kind of like, okay. And you let them go on. So this particular day, she said she was tired and I'm going to take a nap. But not knowing her tired and taking a nap was the fact that she was just tired of what she was going through and being bullied and she was already dealing with her own, obviously, depression, and I didn't know. So that was at the beginning of just learning that something was wrong. But like I said, if I go back now, that's why it's good to talk about it. I can probably pinpoint more things that was missed. But because I didn't know, you know what I mean? I definitely missed it. And I just, God's grace and mercy, I'm here talking about it. And she said, before I was able to feel like I was in a position to be proactive, to recognize her suicide ideations and stuff, because she never really like just come blankly out and say, hey, I'm so, I don't want to, her cries was not like, hey, I don't want to be here. No, you had to listen very carefully to every word. Her words are so much different, even now as an adult, when she's tired or, kind of want to give up or whatever. So, but that's me knowing my child now. But as I was learning what those different terminologies she would use, I was missing them. So she had 6 attempts at suicide. So, and like as I said, God's grace and mercy. So, and each time I learned, and like I said, her depression showed up homicidal and suicidal. So you're talking about, and so her manic was like, like I said, it can be, so, you have the deep depression side, but then she has time where she was so aggressive. She was fighting everyone in the house, grabbing knives. And when they told me that was a form of depression, I was like, what? She in here trying to kill us, like she in here trying to, but those are that was, I'm thinking she acting out. That was another attempt. She had another attempt. Like after she came down off of that, she felt bad at what she was doing. And so then she felt like, I'm better off not around. I'm up here, because she was still trying to deal with what was going on with her. So, so like I said, I've seen so many sides of that's when learn about the mood disorder of the bipolar, but from the depression looking like sadness, and then it looking, the aggression and anger and fighting and all that too. So I can go on and on. I know we got probably like an hour, but yeah, it's definitely, I think you can have open conversations and you have parents that may be dealing with stuff to ask those questions. You know what I'm saying? Because what I will say is every child is different.
That's right.
And every situation is different.
Right.
So we can give pointers, like Tamu can give mine, but really it's the being available like we're doing now and being maybe having those questions so that um situational we can help. You know what I mean? Because it's definitely it's so different, you know.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing, both of you. And so at this time, I want to get a little deeper into how you guys felt as parents. Like, how would you guys feel when your child was in crisis, or when you found out about a diagnosis? Were you feeling guilty? Did you feel like there was something that you messed up on, or if you guys want to talk a little bit about that, do you feel like helpless? How did you learn to cope with that?
Hmm. I will say that the the diagnosis itself didn't make me feel, guilty or anything like that. Um, it was more like frustration because I feel like you want it to be like an illness that has a cure or a direct path to some type of management or solution. So, like when you have a cut, you might need a stitch, or, you know what I mean? So that's what you're looking for. So even though they tell you it's different and it's trial and error and it's based on what they hear from you. So that's one of the things. It's like if you go in there and you're embarrassed about something, an episode or something that you try, and then you don't say everything, well, they can't even help you accurately because you didn't share all the information, right? And so I think I felt very frustrated. And when we had those times of crises, I felt um, overwhelmed. I felt helpless. I felt angry. Um, there were times where I began to have health challenges because of the stress. So, different pains, chest pain, stomach pain, things where I had to go to urgent care. I had to go to the hospital because of the stress. And not blaming my daughter at all, but I'm saying the stress and the feelings of the situation. And then also when you would find, or we would find, like a particular routine or an approach, that would work and give us some sense of normalcy. Well, if it worked this month, it might change by next month and it didn't work anymore. So it was just, I felt like a bit of a roller coaster, right? So I didn't feel like I couldn't quite get my footing, um, because every time I thought, okay, we're at a calm, state, then something would happen. And it might be like something that we hadn't noticed before, something that triggered her that was different from before, just different situations. So, very, very overwhelming, and certainly a feeling of isolation, in that even the people who would try to be supportive and be here for me, they just didn't have any sense of like real understanding of what was going on because they hadn't been through anything similar.
Mhm.
So then it was almost sort of frustrating for me to try to lean on somebody else because they didn't get it. So then I'd be irritated with them. So I'll pause, Nikki.
Mhm. I mean, I can relate 100%. It's definitely a lonely I mean, think about it too. If you're coming from a family where it's unheard of, I don't think suicide ideation, none of that was even a word amongst my family until I had to make that phone call. to say that she was in ICU fighting for her life. They like, what? And they like, it was like I had to keep saying, because it was like, it wasn't registering. Like, what do you mean? So she tried to do what? I mean, just out of nowhere, like it was just like this. What are you talking about? And lack of empathy, probably a lot is what I felt, because even though they tried to understand, you still got those comments or statements that was not, no empathy in it at all. Like, kind of like, like even when I'm like, hey, she tried to attempt to take her life, and I'm having this conversation. They just like, like, where were you at? Like, it was just like the reaction. You like, wait a minute, did you hear what I just said? You know what I mean? Like, some things is not even a conversation. So she even became like the black sheep. So when she came around, they treated her different. They made her feel like, really like she was crazy. Like she, straight out of a mental institute. I just can't even, I try, because I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and try to make it like exactly what people probably would do is what happened. Now, as I educated, I've been leading the foundation, having a magazine, and they like learning, I have a greater support system. But when it first started, even her own father, I literally kept hearing, she just doing it for attention. Are you kidding me? So this 6 attempts is suicide. You're going to tell me she keep doing this for attention? You're going to, you know what I mean? Medication, she's having hallucination, she's hallucinating. She's doing that for attention. So those times that she would sleep for 2 days, I had to do it. You know what I mean? Well, those times she was hallucinating, I had to. So it was very lonely. Like she's saying, I started having physical attacks myself. My anxiety, I think that's when my anxiety really got off the chain. Just really trying to, be there for her. Fill the gap of the loneliness of what, because when you have your other family members not understanding what's going on, you trying to love extra hard. So my cup stayed empty a lot of times for a long time. So I was living in Georgia. We didn't have family there. It got so bad I had to move back because, you know what I mean? For the handful that I try to help somewhat, I needed that support. Because I wasn't getting it like within my household. So it was like, okay, well, let me move back, and hopefully, someone, for those who would call and check on me, would kind of step up and help me a little on this journey. So everything that Temu said is overwhelming, very, very overwhelming. It was a lot of frustration when you try to advocate for your child. This is what I would say to any parent. You got to educate yourself. Because when I first started showing up for the team, like the meetings, I didn't know anything. Your child, when they're dealing with mental illnesses, they will easily try to lock them away and take away the key. If you do not know how to advocate for it, what I would say that, especially when they're as bad as she was. She had 6 attempts. So like they started to see me as unfit, or like what's going on, and I didn't know how to show. I changed. I was going to be a teacher. I changed my profession to psychology, and all my papers was just on her illnesses, her challenges. Like that's how I got through school, because I needed to know what I was dealing with. So as I started showing up at those team meetings, my language started changing, and I was educating myself to know what I'm talking about, what I need to do, even the medications. And because it was so new back then. I don't know if it was new, like the way I had a black psychiatrist, like the way he was explaining to me, they were still trying to understand bipolar. Like, you know what I mean? Now they got all these, like bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and, mild, moderate, severe. They weren't talking about none of that when they first told me. So they were still trying to figure it out. And I felt like he was saying, be careful because it was like they were trying to throw so many she was on so many different medications, trying to figure out what can kind of get her at some sense of normalcy. So you have to, as a parent, you have to find some way to get some self-care in there, because you can easily get burnt out. Many nights crying, many nights just I found sleeping on the floor beside her, just trying to catch some sense of sleep with my hand on her, like, especially when when you're on 24 watch or whatever the case is, you know what I mean? So did I feel like it was my fault? Only time I blame myself that it was my fault that I missed the silent cries, that I did not spend enough time with her to catch that she was being bullied or she was going through, I had to find out when she, tried to take her life. That part hurt the most. But do I blame the challenge and mental challenges and all? I look at mental illness the same as physical. So none of us ask for those illnesses. So I don't blame myself for that. But I do blame, I kind of felt bad in the beginning of not being more attentive, because sometimes when you get to that preteen and teen, we give them space. We still got to make time for them to have those conversations to understand what's going on with them.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, both of you. You guys, this is such a great conversation. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And I know it's going to impact so many other parents who are watching at this time. So, or even going to watch on the replay. I know this is going to be very impactful. So thank you guys. But Nikki, you had mentioned self-care. So I want to know a little bit about what each of you guys do for self-care, to take care of yourself, to cope with these times.
First thing first, during that time, I had to find a mental outlet. Meaning, like, because sometimes you just couldn't get away. Like when they're at a bad place, like really, unstable, you got to ride it out, like until they get to a place of being stable. So, but I got into jewelry. I started making jewelry. It was therapeutic for me. I could be there for her. I would make jewelry. So I felt like having first a mental outlet, because sometimes when you are a caregiver or someone with mental illness, you're not always able to get away physically. So you got to learn how to find something mentally. So the jewelry making and my faith walk, like I am a praise and worship music. Definitely spent a lot of time singing, holding her, singing to her, listening to music. That calmed me, that calmed her, that calmed the atmosphere. So I would encourage, like, that the self-care got to start mentally first. Then when you're able to build a support system, you can ask, can I get away for an hour? Can I get away for 2 hours and do something that you don't? So like I would take walks by the water. I love water, like going, like a park, or, what I'm saying? Or like what it looks different for everybody. Somebody want to say they want to get a massage, but for me, mine was just, I need to just go clear my mind, like walking, clear my mind, like kind of getting away from just that environment. So I don't have to, it wasn't that I needed to like take a trip or do nothing really big, but it's just like, let me step away from this for a minute so I can recharge, physically, mentally, emotionally, because sometimes you just don't want to give her all that crying or let them see you. We get strong, and I know she'll say that as a mom. We put on our strong face and our strong, but really it's like, oh, that's my baby, So being able to kind of just let all that out for a minute and come, having someone to be ready to. I was just grateful for the ones who was ready to give me a hug. Like a hug meant everything to me. Like just being able to so building a support system for yourself is self-care. Like I said, self-care look different for everybody, but that's I'm just a support system mentally for me, and God is the yeah, I know ain't no way, no other way, form or fashion, because when you're lonely, you're not lonely. You know what I mean? When you don't have people, you have God. So Yeah.
Yes, and I would say a lot of things similar to what Nikki said. Definitely prayed a lot. I also wrote a lot, and I don't consider myself to be a writer, but I mean I wrote some like banging poems, okay, about the situation, and like my feelings. So those were a couple of things, but also I would take myself to the movies. I had a movie theater like right down the street, and my husband is very present, so I would let him know. And of course, this before the pandemic, so he was working at offices and things like that. So I would let him know when it was one of those days where I just, you know, I had enough. I have to go to movies tonight, and so you know he would get home in time, and then I was out. So for those, you know, 2 hours, 2.5 hours at the movie theater, I could like just think about what was happening in the movie. I was able to get lost in the movie. And so that would give me some space to sort of take that break and then give me some strength to come back into the home environment. And then I did things simple as like get in my car and like drive around the block when I needed to remove myself. And I knew certain people in my support system. I knew who I could call for what. So there were certain people I could call if I needed to yell and scream, like just to get it out of my system. Like I don't need you. You don't have to tell me what you think I should do. None, like just let me yell and scream and you know use profanity, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd be like, okay, thanks, you know. So and then you know go back to the house. So there's just some simple things, and like Nikki was saying, it's like whatever works for you and can give you
Mm-hmm.
some sense of relief for whatever period of time, you
Mm-hmm.
have to take that.
Yes.
I did have a practice of meditation though, and so I have two daughters. So the oldest one is the one with bipolar, but I would tell them on most days when we would get in, I would say, you know, mommy's going to meditate. It's only be like 20 minutes. And I would go do guided meditation. And it had to be guided because then if it wasn't, then I'm just sitting there worrying the whole time. Right. But if I can listen to somebody else's voice and tell me what to do and take some deep breaths and, you know, that would help. So then I could come out and then kind of go on with our evening routine.
Yeah.
Awesome tips. Thanks you guys for sharing. Um, this is a lot, but you guys have been. I appreciate you guys greatly for your transparency. I just want to go into a few more things to help some parents. And for those of you who are watching, thanks for sitting with us. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for participating in the conversation. If you have questions, feel free to comment them and we can bring them up to ask these two super moms that we have here with us. Let's see. I know we've been having some tech issues, so if you guys are having trouble too hearing, or it's getting staticky,
Right.
let us know so we can try to, yeah. So we'll try to adjust as best as we can. Are you guys hearing static right now?
Yeah.
Yes, you're static.
Hmm. Hold on. I'll try to adjust. I'll try to adjust mine. Um, but can you guys talk about? You guys talked a little bit about some of the signs, but can you guys talk a little bit more um, about some signs that parents might need to look out for, and how to best advocate for your child, like when you are in, the pediatrician or with the psychiatrist. When you're if your child is in the hospital, like how can you best advocate for the child? I know a lot of parents have had children that end up in the ER and are sent right back home. What helped you guys when you were trying to advocate? I know Nikki mentioned education, but what else do you guys have? I'm gonna try to figure out my connection.
Nikki, you want to go?
muted myself. Outside of education, you know your child better than anybody else, and so you really got to stand strong. Because at the end of the day, I'm sure, especially when, like in a psych, like when you go to ER, they have like psych doctors, and I mean, they probably got multiple cases in the era we living in right now. There's so many kids that's unstable and having different mental challenges, and it's very high. You know, we know with mental illness, but that's why it's important to get to know your child and know um how bad are like where they are mentally is, you know, because they'll look at it, they'll give like this question, they have basic assessments, you know, so they give this assessment and they're like, hey, you know, oh, they're good, just watch, like I've done the 24-hour watch, you know, or for a suicidal child, just, you know, remove all the knives and the all the things that harm, you know, and watch them. What do you know? That's torture on a parent, right? But at the same time, not being so quick to put them in a hospital, but knowing that whether or not they in danger. So if I had to give tips and tools, it just, because say, like I said, it's so individual. You have to really know your child. I can't say it no more, because you know, I got 4, so all of them are different, and um 3 out of 4 has had some sort of mental challenge, you know what I mean? But it showed up different for each one of them. But because I learned from my daughter, I was able to recognize she was the oldest out of the other 2 to know how to. So I'm able to be proactive. I'm able to get them help. So then if you know them well enough, you will maybe keep from being at the ER. You can be able to go to, you know, like this, you know, your therapist or the primary care. You know what I mean? It won't end up an ER visit. See, that's my goal. Like, we don't want to wait till they're in crisis. See, that's the problem, because sometimes your crisis story is not going to always be a great ending. You know what I mean? We don't want to wait until they in crisis mode. We have to get to know their friends, their, you know, if they're in a relationship. Those are risk factors. Let's talk about the risk factors. You have to not only educating yourself on the symptoms, but educating yourself on the risk factors, like those things that tip off you. What are your child's triggers? You know, those things. So I think what's very important, like I hear you saying, like, how do you advocate in being an ER? But if you don't know your child, you can't advocate for. So the same way you're trying to get the doctor trying to get to know, or the therapist trying to get to know them, you doing the same thing. So if no one know nothing, no, it's not always that. Medically is one part, but if you know their temperament and knowing that something's different, and you know that they're, you know, not moving the same way, or they're acting, you know, they're, you know, whether it's the isolation or this new friend changed them, or this new relationship changed them, or maybe this move, like our move from Georgia, I mean from Maryland to Georgia, was a trigger for my daughter. That really just like took her over the edge. So maybe it's this move, something big that caused them to really go to the other end. You know, we got substance abuse out here. Like, you know, knowing if even, you know, the eyes are looking, you know, I could just go down the list, you know. So what I'm saying is education is key, not just for symptoms, but definitely for risk factors. And I would say you have to, in order to be able to show up and advocate for your child, you got to know your child. You have to know your child. So you can't advocate for them if you don't know them, and you're just showing up like anyone else at this, to trying to get some help for them. And so at this point, you're powerless. You know, you're not going to get anywhere. So, I probably, that's all I probably can. I mean, I could probably go on, but I just feel like that's the key point when it comes to, you know, when you're going to in a situation, you have to speak for them. I just
Mhm.
feel like, yeah.
Yeah, I would add to that and say, you know, when I mentioned the keeping the notes,
Hmm.
so when you are in that situation, in the hospital or a doctor's office trying to get some help, and you know something is wrong, when you can show them your
That too.
documentation,
Hmm.
because it shows the difference. It shows if there's like an elevation of aggression over some days or some hours. It shows that versus you just showing up and you're only talking about what's happening right now.
Hmm.
Because it's different for each child, it looks different,
Hmm.
how it shows up. If you got that documentation, then you're able to show, look, this is out of the norm.
Hmm.
And it's not just, this one moment. It's over some days. This is
Hmm.
out of the norm.
Hmm.
And then that helps them because that gives them something to go off of, because you're basically giving them a baseline and now what's happening from that baseline. And then you can be more likely to get some help, or at least, some additional opinion or something,
Hmm.
when you're in those situations where you're trying to explain to someone else. And then I would also say, for our children who are, so typically, well, I won't say typically, in my experience with the mental illness, they have sensitivities to certain things. You might call them triggers, right?
Hmm.
So my daughter, she did the best when there was a routine and we stuck to the routine. But things come up in life.
Hmm.
So you can't always stay, and you have other children and you have a job, and so there's things that happen to throw the routine off.
Hmm.
So if you're aware of that, that there's probably going to be a problem if this routine is changed, then you can try to be proactive in that. You can minimize the amount of change that they need to adjust to, and then the change that you're not able to avoid, then you just build in. You might
Hmm.
build in some extra time. You might know that, if my daughter had to stay up late, let's say studying for a test, something as simple as that, then I know probably tomorrow morning is going to be
Hmm.
rough, and we probably not going to be able to get out on time. So I might go ahead and send a message to the school, to the particular teacher, sending a message to somebody at the school saying, she had to stay up late, but we're coming. I'm just giving you a heads up,
Hmm.
kind of thing. So then it sort of takes the edge off of me, like trying to force, that morning routine when I know she's thrown off. Right.
Hmm.
So then I have a little less of an edge, and then that means then she's gonna have a little less of an edge, right? Because what my mood does impact her mood. So if she's agitated and I can be calm and I can know that it's okay, we're going to work through it, I've notified them, we're good, then that's going to help her. But if I don't have that control, then the whole thing just explodes, right? So that's just a one example. And then I would also say, going back to the how to advocate, if you are fortunate enough to have some particular medical professionals, whether it's the pediatrician or the or the psychiatrist, that you do trust and you have a relationship with, they know your child, you can reach out to them when you
Hmm.
get in a crisis situation. Most doctor's office, the pediatrician, they have that after hours number you can call, and they have the records and all of that. So if you're at the hospital and you need some kind of guidance or something, like, reach out. Some people don't realize that just because you're not in an appointment, or it's the weekend, um, they don't use their resources that they have.
Hmm.
But I had my daughter's psychiatrist, I had her email, and she would check the email like 24/7. So if something was happening and I needed some support, look, what do I tell them about this? What I tell them, I sent her email, she write right back, right? And then her pediatrician, I had the after hours number. So you want to just arm yourself with all of your resources. And let's say that you don't have, that type of strong network. In most cities, there's the NAMI chapters. You can call that number and just ask, if there's like a particular question you have, or what do they think about this, or even like, which hospital should I go to? You know what? They're going to be able to tell you, but from the volume of people that they serve, they're going to be able to tell you where they have like the best results and people, have the best kind of patient care and customer. They'll be able to give you that guidance, and then that can, help you, give you some sense of confidence that the process is going to work and you're going to be able to get your child the care that they need.
Sorry, I muted somebody else. But thank you so much, guys. I listen. We can go on talking about this for so long. Am I still messing up?
No,
Can
you're
you hear me
good.
okay? Okay,
Yes.
good. So, yeah, there was a few different technical issues, but I think the information got it for those of who guys kept in here. There's so many gems dropped during this conversation. So, again, I thank you guys both. This was just an amazing, amazing conversation. I think that impacted so many. Um, but before we close out, I want you guys to talk a little bit. I know you guys introduced your organizations at the beginning, but if you guys want to let people know how they can contact you, if you guys offer services you offer, and all that kind of stuff, you guys can do that. I'll actually, I don't know how I can put it in both comments, but maybe I'll post it later so that people can get in touch with you. So if you guys want to share that, and any last final thoughts.
Go ahead, Nikki.
Oh, okay. I was waiting for you to go. Uh, um, we are we starting our support groups back up. A lot of things changed during the pandemic, so trying to, because we were doing them in like the libraries in the areas, um, so I've decided to kind of start it back up with the virtual, um, and I'm actually working hand in hand trying to get into the school systems actually. Um, so our foundation is more community based, trying to do, to impact, get out there and be active in the community. I am also available just for conversation, especially like I said, trying to just create. We're still, like I said, in the groundwork of creating um, the support groups for the caregivers and the teens. So although we have done crisis intervention, but it's also like in the area. I'm in the Odenton area, so um, but we fight foundation. So we definitely have endless connections and resources, and always willing to provide education. We just had our rally, actually yesterday. So we provide our platform just to give everyone a voice, to let them know that they're not alone. But the organization itself is geared towards the age group of 12 to 24, the youth and young adults, because that's where it all started with my daughter, all in just that transitional time. Um, and then the magazine, like I said, if you I want to get, you said you write poetry already. So like, I was like, oh, you want to publish some of that poetry in my, in my magazine. So if you love to write or want to tell your story, or like I said, we have a poetry section. Our magazine is for that. And also if you're a mental health professional, we're highlighting, letting people know those mental health professionals that's out there, and even organizations. Like I would like to highlight your organization as well, Tamu, of people that's just trying to make a difference. So yeah, that's pretty much yeah. You'll see me, like, follow us, We Fight Foundation, on Instagram, Facebook. You can see the work that we're doing. Follow Rowdy Up Magazine on Instagram. and Facebook, and even at RallyUpMagazine.com and WeFightFoundation.org, and check out the videos and everything that we're doing. So I was just trying to like go down this list of
It's a lot.
what we do, but I just I just I'm just very passionate, you know, about mental health, especially in youth and young adults. So that's my passion. That's where my heart is. So yeah.
That's great, Nikki. And so I'm excited to meet you, and certainly we can do something together. So I'll be following up with you. So for me, you can check us out at ltyfoundation.org. So LTY are my brother's initials, Lee Thompson Young. And same thing, LTY Foundation on Instagram, and on Facebook is spelled out Lee Thompson Young Foundation. And then myself, I am Tamu Lewis. So you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And you'll see that we do have programs for parents on the website and for organizations as well. And we have some coaching groups for parents virtual, so you can be anywhere, and you'll have access to some learning, some lessons and things on demand, but then we'll also have virtual calls weekly to reinforce that information and to answer any questions live, so that you can get the support that you need. Because that's one of the big things that Nikki and I both mentioned, is that as parents and caregivers, that feeling that you're alone. And even if you do have the mental health professionals that you're working with, you still, it helps if you know somebody has been through a similar situation and they made it through it, right? That's inspiration to you to know that you can make it through too, and we can share some tidbits, and maybe you can make it through a little faster than we did, with a little less pain, a little less challenges than we had. So, I am happy to connect with anyone and do what I can to be of service.
Thank you. Thank you both for everything that you do. Thank you both for being just passionate about not only helping and advocating for your child, but for others. I appreciate you guys joining us on tonight. I'm going to throw in my little commercials now. Speaking of, I know Nikki said she's going to start running her groups. I am going to finally start my groups. I used to do groups with NAMI. 1000% recommend NAMI for those of you who aren't familiar. NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. They do different family support groups as well. They also do peer support groups. I'm going to be starting a peer support group for, it was going to be, I said 21 to 35, but I think I'm going to change it to 25 to 35. And that's going to be starting soon. Also, Of a Sound Mind is going to be doing our annual backpack drive. So the details will be coming out about that if you are in Connecticut. I'll be doing collections for school supplies now that the winter time is coming up, winter break and everything. Kids need more school supplies. We usually send them to actually the domestic violence shelter because they need school supplies a lot of times. But we're going to be doing that. So I'm going to say that by way of announcement. But thanks again, guys. This was an amazing conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know so many people got so much out of it. I'm glad we all could connect. I love connecting with you guys. You guys are great, and you're great at what you do, and you have genuine hearts. So I thank you guys for joining me tonight. You guys could be so many other places. You guys are busy, but I'm glad I could lock you down for this hour. I appreciate you both. For those who are watching, you guys take care. I will see you in the next discussion. Have a good night, guys.
All right. Blessings.
Thank you.